In today's video, I'm going to show you how to write the app script to export a Google Sheet as a PDF and send it in email or upload it to a Google Drive. So if you want to create this invoice template, check out the link in the description below to find my tutorial for that. But otherwise, for the app script to generate a PDF, let's jump into that right now. So extensions and app script, and then we'll start writing the script. So we'll go ahead and just call this script project. Maybe we'll call it PDF script project, just to be a little bit more clear. And then this one, we'll call it generate PDF. And we'll put that script in there. But before we jump into that, let's create our menu. And so we're going to wrap that in an on open. And so this will run every time the Google Sheet is opened. And it has to be named exactly this, on open. So we're going to access the UI so we can create the menu. So spreadsheet app. .get UI, and then UI create menu, and we can call this PDF menu, script menu, whatever we want. So we'll just call this PDF menu, add item, and then we'll call it generate PDF, and then we'll link it to that with this exact same name right there. Then finally add to UI. So just like that. First of all, we want to tap into our spreadsheet so we can get things like the ID, so we can generate the URL, which is going to look something like this, and then we're going to add some stuff after that. But this is going to be the basis of our URL that we're going to use to export it as a PDF. And then we want to get a couple things like invoice date, client name, and client email. So let's start by accessing that spreadsheet. And so I'm going to assign it to a variable called SS, and then we'll do spreadsheet app, get active spreadsheet. And then let's get that sheet. So that was get sheet by name. And then I believe it's called invoice. We'll double check that while it's saving. Yep, it is. And then let's get those things like the date. And so that is G5. And then name and email, C4 and C5. So let invoice date, sheet, get range, G4, get value. And then let invoice name get range D4, get value. And finally, I'm just going to copy and paste this one, and we'll call this invoice email. And then this would be D5. All right, so I'll guess our couple things here from this. And then we can go ahead and start to create our URL. So our URL is going to look something like this. So you could just set this when you write the script, or if you want to be able to use the script on multiple projects, then let's make this a little more dynamic. So let's create that ID right here. So SSID, and then we'll get the ID. And then let's change this from single quotes to a backtick, which on my keyboard is right above the tab. And then let's replace this with a template literal, which is $sign in curly braces with a left and a right. And then we can put that variable right inside of the string. And so this is the first part of our URL. And then we need to come up with the parameters that we're going to use for our export. So let's put that in another variable, and we'll call it URL extended. And then in here, let's do export format equals to PDF and format equals PDF. Just make sure we hit all sides there. And then we need a couple more other things. So we could do things like and GID. And so this would be the sheet ID. And so if you look in here, so let me refresh this. So we can see the GID is right here. And this is the unique ID for that tab. So items here is 0. And this one is longer numeric ID. So we can, again, copy and paste this into a script, or we can get this dynamically. And so let's get that right here. So let sheet ID equals sheet, get sheet ID. And so if we don't add this, it's going to export all the tabs. And so in this case, we don't want that. If you do want all the tabs, then you could ignore this line here. So let's do ngid equals to, and then we can add it here, sheet ID. And then we'll just add a new line to just keep this a little easier to parse. We could put this all inside of a string and use this, but this is a little easier to track. So we're just gonna do a plus for every new line. And then basically I'm putting together each bit of this with another plus. So I do a little bit here inside of single quotes and then a plus before and a plus afterwards after I get that variable in there. And so let's do and size equals, and let's just do letter. And then next we'll do and so if you notice here, I didn't add a variable afterwards, so I didn't do a plus because I'm not adding anything, I'm just setting it inside here. And so let's do fit width, and so that's fit W is equal to true. And so basically what I'm looking at is when you go to print or download as PDF, you have these options over here. And so portrait is true, then it looks something like this. And then here we have fit to width, and margins are normal, so we'll leave those alone. And so if we're going over here, we're kind of doing those same things just in this back end. And so let's call this good for now, and we'll generate a PDF with this, and then we'll see if we want to update anything after that. Now we need to ping Google to actually generate this PDF. And so we need to set some options for that. And so we'll put this inside an object here. And so our method will be get, comma, and then our headers inside of another object here. And then we need to do this little string here, authorization, and then bearer space, and then we can do plus script app get OAuth token. And so what this is going to do is it's going to ping Google, and it needs to get authorization to do so. And that's what's happening right here. And so at this point now, we can make our request. And so we're going to say let response equal to URL fetch app dot fetch, and then our URL plus our URL extension. And then we're going to add our options in there. And then when we get that back, so let's do this response dot, and you can see the different options. So what we're going to do is do get blob. I know that's a funky name, but so we'll call this let blob equals response dot get blob. And we can make a file name, and we could set that name right here. And so let's create that file name real quick. Let's do file name, and we can use that template literal again, so backticks, and we can determine how we want to put this together. So maybe we'll do invoice 4, and we can put invoice name, and then we could put that date as well if we want. Maybe we'll put up front here. So one thing we'll see when we do this is this invoice date is going to be a little formatted incorrectly, but I'll show you how to fix that in a second. So let's go ahead and get this put together, file name, and then let's make sure we add that PDF there. And then let's look at the first thing is just create it in this folder. And so I'm going to get this ID here. And so we'll do let folder equal to drive app get folder by ID, and we'll paste that in there. And then we'll create that file inside that folder. So folder, create file, that blob. All right, so let's go ahead and get this going. So we can run the script from here to authorize it, or I could refresh and then access the menu from right here. So let's go ahead and authorize the script from here. So run script, authorization required, okay. And then we basically just need to go through this flow. So this is just Google's warning because they did not script this. So go to advanced, go to PDF script project, and then you're gonna have to do select all. So that way it can create that file and put it in the drive, and then continue. And then it should be good to go now. So it won't run the first time. We can double check that real quick here. So there's nothing in there. So let's go ahead and generate PDF and see if we get any errors there. So finish script. Let's go check, and there is our PDF. So we've successfully created our PDF and dropped it in the Google Drive. And you can see here how that date is kind of wonky on this. And so let's fix that real quick first. And so here where we have invoice date, let's go ahead and fix it right here. So invoice date equals to, and what I'm doing is I'm overwriting this. So I got the value here and I'm going to overwrite it. So I'm going to reassign it and then do new date, invoice date. And then I'm going to get the time zone from the spreadsheet. So ss.get spreadsheet time zone. And then I'm going to put the format right here. And so there's different formats you can do. I'm just going to do month, day, year, just like that. And then that will work like that. So let me go ahead and remove this and we'll create this PDF again real quick. Let's refresh and there we go. So it missed the name for some reason. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Invoice name equals D4. Oh, it's supposed to be C4. So C4 and C5. So if I delete this again, run this again, we should have that name in there now. And there we go. So now we have 825 invoice for Tony Romano. All right, so let me show you how to attach this to an email as well. And so if you don't want to create it in a folder, just remove these two rows. But then let's go ahead and run forward and let's create a mail app. And we're going to do send email. And then in this pop-up, we have different options here. So something like this. Let's go to the next one. Should have a attachment here. So here's example with attachments. So let's copy and paste that real quick. So we have email address here in the first one. So let's do invoice email. And then we could do invoice attached. And so next will be the body of the email. And so we can say, hey, here is your invoice. And then finally, under our options, if we look over here, we have name, we have attachments, and it's inside an object. So let's do attachments. And then we can do blob, just like that. And I think that should work. So let's go ahead and check that out. And then we'll look at how we can edit that here in a moment. So go ahead and generate PDF. And it's going to ask for new permissions because I just added mail app. So we guys should do the same thing again real quick. So email is you. And then we'll see if it runs here. So there's that new one. Security alert. Let's delete that real quick. And invoice attached. So here's our invoice and our PDF attachment, just like that. So that is how you can attach a PDF to an email. So finally, let's look at a couple quick ways to upgrade our email. And so our email is very simple. And so what we can do here is mail app and app script. And then it'll bring us to this. And if we scroll down just a little bit to the send email, you'll see we have a slightly different format here. So for some reason, this one has to subject and HTML body, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So what we can do here, instead of having these all out here, is we can bring them into our object, and then we're going to say to, and this would be our invoice email, and then our subject would be invoice attached. And then we can do HTML body. And the reason why this is awesome is because now we can do HTML in here. So we could even use our backticks for our array of literals and say, hey, and then put that invoice name in there. And then we could add some new lines in here using the BR tag. Invoice is attached to this email. Now we could even go up here and we have a total down here in G36. So we could even get that. And so let invoice total g.getRange, and I believe G36, I think. Get value, I'll double check that here in a second. So G35. And so your invoice for, and we could do invoice total is attached to this email. And save, and let's go ahead and that's empty. Let's go ahead and run this one more time. Script is done. Let's go to our inbox. And you can see there's that right now. So this again is formatted a little funny, just like our date was before. And so we can go over here and do JavaScript currency formatting. And we should get one right here. All right, so we can go ahead and use this. And so let's come up here. Let's come above our thing here. So we have our invoice amount already assigned. And so let's do that here. Invoice amount. And then we can get rid of this one. And so now our format will be inside this USD formatted. And so I can come over here, change this to USD formatted, save, maybe even format this document a little bit, make it look a little nicer there. And so let's delete this one and generate a new one, and we'll see if that looks better now. Saying invoice amount, oh, invoice total. So we'll just change that there. And run this. Now, one thing is this has decimal places. So we could say with no decimal places, and it should give us another option. So it's giving us a little bit of option here if we want to update that. So let's go ahead and check this out. So there's the invoice. So if you need decimal places, you can keep it like that. Otherwise, come in here and we can add these. And let's delete this and run it one more time, and then we should be good to go. All right, it's done running. Go ahead and check this out. What's attached? Your invoice for $5,500 is attached to this email. All right, so that is it for today's video on how to generate PDFs from Google Sheets using Google Apps Script. Make sure to check out the other videos on our channel for more tutorials on both Google Sheets and Apps Script. And as always, have a great day.